Hi, guys. Hi, guys. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Come on in. Come on in. We have got a magnificent interview lined up here for you today with the gorgeous Tamara Stiller. Welcome, Tamara. Welcome.
Hi, Sally. Thank you for having me here. This is fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. So Tamara is a co-author of our book, Empowered Women, Empowering the World. And this truly magnificent woman is a mother of 6 children, like 6. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Like,
nice.
Absolutely. Like, we have big families. I have a big family, but you beat me with 6. You're like, that's just phenomenal in itself. But not only does she have 6 children between aged 20 and nearly 4, her and her husband run 3 businesses. They have dignified home care.
Yep.
They have
Royal throne rooms.
Royal throne rooms, that's right, absolutely.
Luxury portable toilets.
Absolutely. And then also Tamara has launched this most magnificent, and it's really her niche, her mum life coaching business, which is absolutely amazing. It's backing mums.
Absolutely.
Really, because we need backing, don't we? We really
do. Absolutely.
And so, Tamara, let's run through. So, resilience, my favorite, and you are one truly resilient woman. I've read your chapter, obviously, and it is like amazing what the trials and tribulations you've come through to rise above every, again and again and again. But let's start from the beginning, really. Like, let's start. I'm just going to hand it on over to you.
Hand it to me.
Yeah.
Look, I think probably where I'd love to head today is sharing the fact that I was a child who was very strong-willed, had a mind of my own. I didn't fit the mold. When all the girls went to the, dress-up day as mermaids, I went as seaweed, and just because. And I always wanted to question things. But over the years, I think that was something that was not always welcome. That was something that was, if you succeeded, it was not welcomed. It was not looked on as something to celebrate, rather something that was maybe a bit intimidating to people. And somewhere in my childhood, somewhere in my own mind, I went, it's not worth it. It's not worth being successful if people are going to treat you like that, including adults, if adults are going to treat you like that. So, obviously I became a mum, and, there's so many aspects to each of our stories, and every one of us has a story. So for me, the chapter in the book, I've tapped in to a sport that I was a part of called physical culture. I did this sport as a child and returned to it as an adult, and actually opened my own club here in Toowoomba. And that was huge for me. Like, now I'd be like, let's do it. Let's open a few of them. Let's get it. But at the time, I really felt like I can't do that. I'm overweight. I'm a mum of 5. I have no education. I have not been a part of the sport for years. And I was an Australian champion when I was younger. Yeah. And I was really good at it. And I was very focused at what I did, and I was driven. But this fear that I carried has been a process to have to rid myself of. And through the years of being a mum, as I think we can all relate to, you get into a groove. It can be very lonely at times. And so my journey, which has got lots of aspects to it, which we'll probably unpack a little today, my heart and my passion really is to see women thrive, mums thrive, in working and operating from their strengths, not trying to compare themselves or think I've got to fit that mold or fit that mold, but the natural bent that we have, who we are, that's who you're meant to be. Let's rock it, and let's celebrate that in one another.
See, what happens a lot, and I know from myself, from my own experience, and from a lot of women mothers that I've spoken to, you dive into, and you're only a kid really when you start having children, in that, not really a kid, but you're very naive to what you're really getting into. You really don't know what pregnancy, childbirth, motherhood, you really don't know what. It doesn't matter how many books, how many videos, how much advice, you don't really know. And you've got this tiny baby, or these 4 or 5 or 6 children, and you immerse yourself in them, and then all of a sudden you come up for air and you wonder, you kind of lose your identity. So I know I read that in yours, and I've read that in lots of other women's chapters within the Empowered Women Empowering the World. Let's go there, hey?
Sure. I think I was very young when I started having my children, and I think one of the things for me, the loss of identity, was perhaps that there was never, I had never really found it to begin with. Yeah. So when there came that point where I was like, who am I? What, you know, this thing that I wanted. I mean, I adore my children. I loved being a mum, but it's tough. It's tough. And I remember sitting in my lounge room at times, and one of the ads that I had an ad that came up, and it was for a university, I believe. And they were saying, you know, they had the mum in a dressing gown and the kids were complaining, and they said, are you made for more? Something to the effect of, you know, isn't there more to life? And then she goes and studies and she becomes this amazing nurse and everything's fine. And I remember just feeling heartbroken, because I'm like, I would not go and leave my children. I chose to be at home. Now, but please don't, this is not an argument, because I have been a stay-at-home mum. I've been a working mum, and this is where my passion comes from, and there's no judgment. It's about finding what works for you and what your capacity is. And so when I went through the years of being a mum and feeling really lonely and feeling very like it just didn't matter, what I did didn't matter, that self-worth just sort of, it chips away. You don't have someone there a lot of the time, unless you're blessed with incredible friendships and close family. Many mums are out on their own, and it can be really isolating. You know, I've had times where, you know, friends back in the day, you know, they'd organise outings, and we knew you wouldn't want to come. Or they'd organise weekends away, trips to Sydney, and, you know, we knew you wanted to be with your kids. I'm like, what the heck?
I would like.
And like, nobody got to know me, and I didn't feel I couldn't put those walls down. I didn't feel there was a safe place to say, I'm struggling with this, but I'm thriving in this. Because if you say you're thriving, then all of a sudden, you know, people can feel threatened by it. I just found women in general confusing. Now, that sounds odd, but I do. And so when I stepped into this sport that is for women and for girls, I found it really interesting that my heart, like, I wouldn't have said that I had this before I started Toowoomba Fizzy, but when I stepped into it, I just had these eyes. There wasn't a child or a woman who walked in the door that I didn't see beauty in.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that's my natural tendency, but when I was there, for some reason, I just had this ability to just go, wow, like, look at her hair, look at the way she carries herself, look at her beautiful, like, I just had this ability to see and pull out and just see the best in them. But I couldn't do it in myself. And so as the years have gone by, you know, I've been married now nearly 21 years, and 6 children later. I know. That's me. And Adam somewhere.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
But it's hard work, and it worries me, especially for my own children at times. I see social media, and I love social media. Social media lights me up. I love everything from colour schemes and fonts to what copy you'll write to hashtags to how people can engage, how you can make wonderful... Actually, a little side note, I was in a group recently and I rocked up. I was so excited to get to know these ladies, and the Zoom room lit up, and there was Africa, Tanzania, Nigeria, LA, black, Tamara, black. And they were talking culturally, and it was fascinating. It was wonderful, and I felt so international, and I felt really good.
You're so funny.
But anyway, I felt really good, and I loved it because there was nobody to impress. We were just women from all over the globe who had a common interest, and we were there to encourage one another, and we were learning from one another. And now I've lost my train of thought. But anyway, that was a cool story. But coming back to, what was I saying, Sally? We
were talking about losing our identity as a mum. Often people are just thought of as just a mum.
Yeah. Oh, lose your marbles as well, apparently. But you lose your identity, and even though being a mother can be all consuming, and it is who you are, it is a role that you have, it's not all that you are. But for me, I'm concerned about social media showing a generation to come, this is what it should look like.
Yeah.
And there are people out there doing it, but it doesn't mean that you're the one, you're not going to necessarily go and seek it out if you don't know it's there. So a lot of the time there's this facade. I see images and I see things on social media and I'm like, oh my goodness, what is that poor child going through? Because there is no way on earth that happened just like that. So I get quite passionate about that, not because I don't want people to live a beautiful life, but actually because I want them to live a beautiful life, because I don't want them to live from a place of unrealistic expectations on themselves, on their children. And I don't want that for my children and a generation to come, because we're going to see, the contentment and the peace and the freedom that comes from being in the moment and from, so how do we, and I think the generation who are coming now, they're being raised with this social media world. They're going to have the skills. It's going to be in them to know how to manage it. They're going to cope.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's really important, I think, for mums to have somebody on their side. Not just the books. I used to have every book I could find because I wanted to be the best mum, especially after my 5-month-old, I fell over and dropped him and fractured his head and severed his brain. We nearly lost him. So when Paris had that brain injury, I think it was about 6 months later that I really crashed. It was almost like depression. And looking back over the years, I can recognize now that something within me, I made that real inner vow, I will be the best mum for you. You're still here. I will be an amazing mum. But what happened was it backfired on me, because then if I wasn't doing it perfectly, I just felt like crap all the time. And then that presented a whole lot of other problems. So, I have a lot to share. And I think in the process of that, I realized that these books that were out there, I would read a book to want to know how to do this. I'd pull the other book and it would be the absolute opposite opinion. And I was like, well, but And I remember the day I grabbed most of the books off my bookshelf, bar a couple of basics that just said, if this happens, you can do this or do that, some very basic things. And I got rid of them all. And I thought, I cannot go and learn about all these problems when the only problems I'll face are maybe here. You can only deal with what comes up for you, with the strengths you have, and also managing your weaknesses and growing in those areas. And so for me, I feel as if when I first heard of the term life coach, I was like, oh, please, you can tell me how you... And I ended up in a course for life coaching, not knowing that's what it was. And it was incredible. And I loved it. And I thought the right questions and the right encouragement and the right guidance, people have that. They have the knowledge within them. They know so much more than they give themselves credit for. And so for me, I think coaching has come about quite accidentally, and yet in a way that I think people, especially mums, we don't necessarily, we might not have the work colleagues surrounding us where there's a team environment, that great job. You don't have that, you do a task and can see the finished product, everything's pulled apart and you've been working all day, and it just doesn't feel like there's a point where you stop and go, look what you've achieved. Look how far you've come. Look at how you're growing. Look at how your perspectives are changing and the skills you're forming. Oh my gosh, Sal, I've got to stop.
You know what? I can completely relate to what you were saying, because when I had my first boy, I have always been a high achiever like yourself.
Yep.
And I've always been results based. So I would work my butt off and I would not stop until I got that done. And then I'd look back and look at that end result, whatever it is, and go, well done, Sal, tick for you. And I pat myself on the back. Then I had a baby and I realized that it was nothing to do about the results. It was everything to do about the process. And you would go through a full day of doing everything to the very best of your ability. And when the baby was asleep and you looked around, the house was a mess. Dinner dishes were still in the thing. The washing was there. And you'd actually not got anything really achieved for the day. But you'd got through the day. And so it took me a lot. And I remember somebody saying to me, it's not actually about the results, Sal, because you've always been results. It was probably my mum. Results based. It's actually about the process. And you need to flip your thinking on that.
And you know what? I'll go one further. It's about the process. And when you have the process, you cannot go through process without presence.
Yeah, good one.
You can't go and don't get me wrong. I just want to reiterate this. This for me is not mums shouldn't work. I'm a working mum. I love it. Yeah. It brings me balance. It lights me up. I'm a better mum because of it. However, in the early years, there was a time where there was sacrifice involved and my presence was needed. Yeah. It was needed. Yeah. And I have a real heart for maybe sometimes, for me, my values, sticking to your values and knowing what you believe. It's okay to call it out and say the reality is what you invest in, you're going to reap from that, what you invest in. And as our eldest is now 20, it's only been the last couple of years I can honestly say that I'm like, oh, now the results are coming. Now we're starting to see these little moments where you're like, that's because we were present. Oh my goodness, that's because we invested. And at the time it feels like forever. And yet, one of the things that I'm working through now, and this is what I love, is we can step into our empowerment and who we are becoming, even while we're not there yet. That's the thing. It's not about being there. I've definitely felt like I never finished school. I never went to uni. I had all these babies. Now it's 20 years on. How am I ever going to catch up? I was in a meeting last week of these incredible corporate women. I got to sit in there. I actually don't even really know how I got in there, but I was in there and I'm like, just put my Zoom call on as if I was meant to be in there. But it was great because I just wanted to learn. And the whole conversation was about the things these corporate women needed to unlearn. And I thought, wow, there you go. All the things they're needing to unlearn that I thought I needed to learn, I don't even need to learn. So we each have our own unique journey, whatever that is. 1 child, no children, 10 children, it doesn't matter. But what it is about saying that whatever your story is, the personalities in your household, the different dynamics within your relationship, whether you're married, whether your partner and you are on the same page, whether there's tension, whether you've got highly strung children or hilarious children or really sporty children, whatever it might be, there is not one other family identical to yours. And so when people give advice in terms of this is what you should do, I think after many years and many children, you'll vouch for me here, Sally, is that there's a balance. Don't get me wrong. You glean from people who've gone before you, but it's really important that you learn to trust yourself, and continue to learn, be open to other ways of doing things. But just to get on with being, I don't like this term in some ways because it's used sort of a lot, but you want to find your superpower.
Yeah.
You want to find your superpower, not only as a mum, but just as a human being, so that you can just forge ahead and just be amazing in who you are, because the world's a better place with that. And I'm speaking to myself here because I'm still learning it.
We all are, because we've never arrived. You're on a continuum. This same vibe is coming up with every single interview I'm doing with all these women. One of them is back yourself, because nobody else will. And the other one is never think you've arrived. You're always, I'm at my best when I'm learning and nudging my growth edge. Yes. And we speak as if, an empowered woman is actually not somebody that is up on a pedestal and she's like, she is like Superwoman. That's my favorite movie, by the way. I think she's hot as, right? So Superwoman, I do. I think she's gorgeous, but it's not a woman standing up there that can conquer all. It is actually a woman that is stepping into her power and understanding who she truly is and what she can do. And then she is Superwoman.
And I think too, the reason I want to speak with, I love working with women is because I get it. But I actually think we're beautifully complementary to men. Like, I don't think it has to be, like, I don't swing the other way. So if anyone's there and it's like women are, no, men are incredible. Men are incredible. No. But I think that
you've got to have a sense of humor way too. Like 6 kids, If you didn't have a sense of humor,
hubba hubba. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's what you're saying. Okay.
yeah,
Yes, absolutely. You'd be. And look, humor is very important to me. Humor is very important to me, and I think that we've got to be able to laugh at ourselves. Your kids have to be able to laugh at you, and they do. They laugh a lot at us. But I think, as you know, you imagine. Okay, my mother-in-law, she quilts. Okay, so when she gets all the fabrics together and she puts them all and she lays it all out, our families are like this. You become a parent and you want to step in and be an amazing mother. That's not how it works. You are becoming a mother. The moment you become a mother, you're now becoming a mother. You're becoming a family unit. You're getting to know one another. I mean, each few years, even sometimes each 6 months, you're like, look at how it's evolving. Look at how these personalities are shaping up and how the connections are happening within the family unit. It's so awesome. And, you know, things when people say, you know, the teenage years, now don't get me wrong, of course there's going to be challenges, but how many people do you hear going, they are awesome years? They're amazing years. You see them emerge. You see the work that you've put in start to come to the forefront. They're discovering who they are and who they are becoming, and they're questioning things. And you see, I love it. I love when you can watch sort of, you know, some cheeky movies together. You know, there might be a bit of a swearing or something, and they're like, ooh, you're like, oh. And you've got those common jokes, and enjoying my children as they're, you know, the older two are now 18 and 20. Like, I love this season.
And you may say an adult joke, or there's some adult humor, and you guys get it above the rest of the kids.
So much fun
moment, isn't it? That is a
it's so fun. Yeah. So I think it's for me, when I talk in terms of like mum life coach, it's not a let me tell you how to do it. It's saying I've made more mistakes than you could possibly imagine. Like, I'm 20 years into making the mistakes. Let me save you some time. And also, I think for women, and I'm not talking about me here. I'm saying I really want that message to come across. Being empowered means finding somebody you trust wherever you are, finding family, friends, or somebody who can give you professional advice even, but making sure that as a mom, you're not closing off the world until your kids grow up. Keep nurturing you, keep growing, because I don't know, there's still room for improvement in this area, I think.
I agree. So that fill your cup area. So many mums hit burnout, so many business women hit burnout, so many people hit burnout, but particularly mums, because we always put everybody else in front. Because when they're tiny babies and toddlers and young children, you do actually have to put them in front of you. You just do.
You do.
It's just
Absolutely.
And then there comes a point where you do need to, and I've had huge guilt even in the last 18 months, really, huge guilt when I was investing money into me, time into me, and I was away from the family, traveling a little bit, learning, growing, doing, but looking back now, it's the best money I've ever spent.
Absolutely. Isn't that partly generational too, do you think, Sally?
I think so. I'm not sure. What's your...
I don't know either. I don't know either. I just know that for myself, like I look at my parents, my mum's generation, oh my gosh, the guilt, it's not even, and then for us, you know, I was certainly raised to be the good girl, to, you know, now I'm singing Frozen in my head, be the good girl you always have to be.
Your mind goes flat out, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. And so for me, I just think it will be interesting to see what our children do. And at the same time, question things. You know, somebody challenged me recently and I was like just gobsmacked. We were at dinner together and my friend Jamie, he's like, Tamara, you're giving me an either or. What if there's not just either or, but more? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I think sometimes when we're looking at our kids, does it mean that they're going to be resilient and empowered or not? Or is, you know, like I'm just giving an example.
Continuum.
We just have to keep looking and keep growing and keep asking and keep conversation. And but I am really passionate about, you know, when I was doing Fizzy, I had to put myself out there and step back into competition. I mean, I'm talking get back in a leotard and fishnet stockings kind of competition. Right. Well, there'd be no way I'd be doing that now. And this is what's beautiful too. I'm in a real time at the moment where I'm not in great physical shape. but understanding that my growth is, I'm still evolving, and that that's okay, that that's not all perfect at this phase, at this stage, to not hold yourself back because something isn't ticking over. Just keep growing, keep that 1 degree at a time, changing.
That is something actually that I did as motherhood. When I get back into my size 12 jeans, I've never got back into them, so I don't even know what I was thinking. But in my head, I would think, when I get back into those size 12s, then I will be happy. Then I will be the perfect skinny mother with the pram. I never was the skinny mother with the pram. I never was. It wasn't until I'd had all of my children that I could, get back down to, and I'm great. I'm feeling pretty happy when I'm size 14 now.
Absolutely.
So,
oh my gosh, size 14.
And to be happy with that now. See, that's how much growth. And I think so many young mums, without letting yourself go, I think so many young mums always feel it's that unrealistic happiness model. If such and such, then I'll be happy. You actually need to be happy now.
Absolutely. And I think giving ourselves that grace, that compassion, to stuff up, to make mistakes, to look back and go, I got it wrong. I did let myself go. I have let myself go. But you know what? It's okay. It's okay. I think we sometimes get stuck in this narrative of who we are and what we are, and that's it.
Yeah, it's black or it's white.
You're absolutely. It's not either or. It's
no,
not
it
either or.
And you do need to be kind to yourself. Being kind to yourself makes such a big difference. It really does. What you think,
I agree.
Absolutely does. Well, Tamara, I knew our interview was going to be hilarious. You are just a pocket rocket. You are hilarious. You are so warm, big-hearted. You are a wealth of knowledge. You don't actually, like, you talk about backing yourself.
Yeah.
What you know is like, you've got 6 children and you've done a magnificent job of those children. I know, because I know your mother and she tells me how magnificent your kids are.
They are magnificent.
Yeah, they are amazing. You're married for 20 years. Like, that in itself, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because that is the hardest thing you ever do, is stay married to the same person for 20 years. And it's a credit to you and your husband.
Thank you.
Credit. Along with all the businesses that you've run over the years, and 3 that you've got now. Like, I am so proud to be part of Empowered Women Empowering the World with you, because you truly are one incredible human being.
Thank you. You are too. And, I have to say, for anyone who is hearing about this Empowered Women book, I think this is what's been fascinating for me, is that I know we have to wrap up, but I have to share this. Right. This was really profound for me. We were in with our publisher and we were working together. And there was one particular day, I was right on the verge of tears. And I've had experiences before where you bring something up and people are like, oh, they're there. Or they'll say, oh, calling you on your BS. These women in this book rallied and they called me out on my BS, saying, this is not who you are. It was a very different experience for me from, when somebody says, I'm calling you out on your BS, and you feel like, oh, no, this is how I actually feel. It wasn't that. This was an empowered woman call out. There is something in front of you. There is like a wall in front of you, and we are calling you out beyond that because we see more in you. And it was like this, I don't know, these lionesses just all sort of were like, rah, just stop that now. And for me, I've had such exception with love. It was incredible. Anybody watching this, if you are around women who worry about what you I don't know, when you're just nitpicky kind of, get new friends.
I agree. It's a good one. That is, if you get that from this interview,
get new friends.
That's a good one. Honestly, surround yourself with like-minded, uplifting people that will call you out on your bullshit. No fluffy rubbish, but just real, down-to-earth women. That's what these women are in this book. It's great.
Really.
It's absolutely incredible.
And you can see things differently. You can have different opinions. You can be that, and you can be fiery, and you can be passionate, and you go, nah, don't agree with that. And it's okay. They're the kind of women I love to be around. Amazing.
Me too. You are one of those kind of women.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this wonderful.
Thanks, Sally.
You're an absolute star. It's a public holiday today in Perth. So this is why I'm looking so magnificent, and I'm sitting down in the room of, I'm hiding from 15 children out there and 8 adults. So I'm here with my sisters and their husbands and
so good.
our 15 children.
15.
I've been down the beach this morning. Yeah, we're up at the holiday house up north. So I'm going to go and get back to them. And thank you so much for this, Tamara. I really, really appreciate it. And I feel so grateful for technology, because like laptop, iPhone,
opposite sides of the country
are phenomenal.
Thanks, Sally. See everyone. Thank you
so much.
Bye.